v.h.s.x? What do you mean?
Alright everybody, welcome back to a brand new video. Today I'm reacting and having a discussion about a video from Stalkedd saying why Squid Game belongs in Dead by Daylight. As a Squid Game enjoyer myself, I wanted to kind of tune in and kind of get my thoughts on what's being discussed in the video, which from what I'm understanding, it seems like there's going to be some kind of like killer power in here, which, as you guys know, I mainly play killers, so this would be a really good thing to kind of tune in about. Let's jump right in. Original video will be linked in the description.
This is why Squid Game belongs in Dead by Daylight. But what would a chapter look like? Welcome to the Squid Game. The new killer, the front man, comes with his power game of chance.
So they're gonna go with the front man. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm a little bit. All right. Right off the bat, I gotta say, I guess, yeah. Like, I don't know. I feel like I wouldn't imagine that this character, at least from watching the series myself. Obviously, I'm not gonna give any spoilers if anybody is interested in actually watching the series themselves, but I wouldn't imagine that this character is somebody that would actually quite partake in the sort of the trials. Now obviously we know that the entity usually will force a lot of killers to the entity will usually force a lot of the characters to do things that they probably would not want to do. So that does make sense to some extent. However, I will say that it's definitely not a bad idea. Now, the only thing that I think is a really that kind of comes to mind when it's something like this is like, does Squid Game belong? And I would say that to some extent, I would say it does not, as much as I would probably want it to be there. I don't know if Squid Game belongs directly as a horror adjacent kind of thing. I think it'd be more of like a wild card sort of pick, in my opinion. So I would find it kind of hard to kind of imagine how that would go. But I do want to continue to hear what's being said here. So the power is called the game of chance. It says that there's 10 pink guards around the map. Every 30 seconds, one will become active at random. Survivors can interact with an active guard to play a game. If the survivor wins, they will be healed 1 health state and be granted 150% movement speed for 3 seconds. If the survivor fails, they'll be shot, causing to scream out and enter the deep wound state. Okay. I kind of understand it, but like I also don't know if or how this would function within the fog. Like, is it going to be that the guards are just not really like people per se, and they're just more so like little like robots or mannequins or something that just kind of stand around until they're like able to move? Because I don't know. I'm still trying to kind of imagine this. So it says that their power is, the front man uses a knife as his basic attack. He has access to his Desert Eagle pistol. The front man stops moving and readies his hand cannon, unable to move while aiming down sights. Hitting a survivor removes 1 health state and inflicts the hemorrhage and mangle status effects. Firing the hand cannon will cause it to go on cooldown for 6 seconds. Okay. And then it says that every 45 seconds, the front man called the red light. A short lullaby will be played map-wide before survivors need to stop moving. Any survivor caught during moving during the red light while in range and within sight of a pink guard will be shot and lose 1 health state. Red light does not apply to survivors in chase. If a survivor is playing a game with an active guard, they will be faced with a series of difficult skill checks. Failing skill check reveals that survivor's location to the front man. Off the bat, I don't know how this would fit, but I'm gonna let Stalkedd at least explain it to us.
Pink guards will be spawned around the map at random. Become active. Survivors can interact with this active guard in order to play a game for a free heal. They'll have to match the input shown on their screen, similar to a skull merchant drone, and then be faced with a difficult skill check, almost like overcharge or oppression. Only one survivor can interact with an active guard at a time, and nobody else can interact with that survivor. not other survivors, and not the killer. Not until the game is done. The prize being a free instant heal of 1 health state, as well as 150% movement speed boost for 3 seconds, basically a sprint burst, but no exhaustion. Any survivor who fails the game will scream out, revealing their location, and then be shot by the guard applying deep wound. Survivors most likely wouldn't interact with the guards unless they're injured and need the free heal. Even then, the frontman could just walk up behind them and wait for the game to be finished. This is because participating in the games is always a gamble. As for the frontman, his primary power is called the hand cannon. When not injuring survivors with a knife as his basic attack, he stands still and readies his gun, unable to move as he aims down sights, fixed in a stationary position. Shots will remove 1 health state from any survivor, bringing a healthy survivor to injured and an injured to down. However, whether he hits or misses, the frontman will not be able to shoot another bullet for 6 seconds, with a slight hinder as he lowers his gun, making any use of it completely destroying the frontman's mobility, allowing for on-the-fly decision making. Do you stop and pull out your gun, willing to sacrifice distance, or do you commit to the M1? The frontman's secondary power is called red light. Every 45 seconds, the frontman can call for a red light, in which a short jingle will be played, and all of the guards will ready their guns. Once the jingle ends, any survivor within the sight of a guard must stop moving. If a survivor is caught moving in front of a guard, they will be shot, entering the deep wound state if healthy, and downed if injured. This does not apply to any survivor in a chase, as they're kind of playing their own game with the frontman. However, if any survivor is interacting with a guard for their heal game, that guard will kick them off, forcing them to play red light, green light, revealing their location to the killer via killer instinct for 3 seconds. So to recap, the frontman's power is called Game of Chance. He brings along into...
Well, I kind of can sort of see what we're going with here. I do imagine that it would be interesting if there was an animation where when the guard is revealing your position, like your hands are up, like you're trying to kind of surrender, and then the guard will just kind of point his gun at you for a while. Until the for a certain duration, until the front man can make his way over. I think that would be a pretty cool concept. To kind of like alert them or something like that, potentially. I do think that this is a bit of, I don't know, like I'm not super confident in this concept. Mainly because I'm not entirely sure how you would balance something like this, or if it would even be something that people would want to really play. Mainly because obviously you have a gun, that's cool. You know, we don't have many characters with guns. Ghostface should have had a shotgun. But the hand cannon is kind of cool. I like the idea that it would be kind of like Slinger, where you know, it's pretty loud, you know what's going off, pretty telegraphed animation, pretty easy for people to understand. And taking sort of the time out to aim and fire and stuff like that, that could work, I think, to some extent. I'm not sure about like sort of feedback in that sense. Like, how would you know if like where to dodge, I guess is something my people might say. I do imagine that it'd be a little bit easier, I guess you to say, to go against like maybe a hatchet or a fire axe or something like that, or Slinger, because it is more telegraphed. I don't know, right? I'm not sure, but I don't know, like in terms of the actual ability, I do kind of see it. If we were to rank this as a killer for like in a tier list, I wouldn't imagine it'd be very high. I mean, obviously there's not a lot of utility beyond just kind of giving these survivors a boost. Obviously you're kind of giving them a free heal, which is a game of chance, I guess you could say. And then obviously you can use this red light thing, which, mind you, I had read in the reworks for Skull Merchant all that time ago that they were actually trying to do something similar for Skull Merchant. So if it might end up releasing, and they probably wouldn't go with the same power again, I would imagine. I could be wrong, but that's just sort of my thoughts. I'm a little hesitant to really pinpoint exactly how this would work because it's very out of the box in a lot of ways. And I I don't know. At least for me personally, I don't know if I'd actually play this character longer than release if it did actually come out like this. Because to me, it doesn't. At least for me personally, I don't think there's a lot of stuff to really sink your teeth into. I would say, mainly because like it seems very simple, but almost too simple to where like it's not like you're given a very big reward. For its simplicity, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, I'm gonna see if I can try to explain this a little bit better. Like with a lot of character designs, like some things can appear simple on the surface, but then they actually can come out and be very in-depth a lot of ways. Like Clown used to be that way before the patch. I think like Springtrap is like that in a lot of ways, where like you're really on the surface it seems pretty simple, but there's also like a lot of interesting things you can do with it. With this, I'm not too sure, like, because you either give them a free speed boost or in a health state, or you don't, and then they're in deep wound, and you know deep wound already got nerfed anyway, so it's like 10 seconds or something. And then you have your gun, but you know you can't move, you can only aim down sights, you can fire once, so he's like kind of a range killer. And then you have the you have an ability that basically sort of stops them in their tracks when they're not in chase, and that's like it, which is okay, I guess. Like it's like, you know, and it says that they can get shot if they are within line of sight, and which is kind of cool, but I don't know if like I don't know, like it's I can imagine it's very hard to fit in, you know, something like this. Personally, I almost thought that you might want to include like that some kind of other like games into a power like this. I'm not sure how though. I would need a lot more time to really think about it, but I feel like maybe there'd be other ways to incorporate it. But I do want to hear if Stalkedd has anything else to add here.
And chase to play the game and stop moving, and interrupting any game that a survivor is playing with a guard one-on-one. If you couldn't tell already, there's a huge gambling theme to this killer power. Loading into the game, you're gambling whether or not your pink guards will be in good positions, because if they don't see a survivor, then that survivor will be able to move freely during red light. Perhaps a ring can remain under these guards, similar to the knight's cronies, showing their area of visibility. Your gambling is the killer, knowing whether or not you should use your hand cannon, having to stand still to use it. And finally, you're gambling as a survivor if you decide to try and take a chance to heal.
Well, I wouldn't entirely say that Squid Game is all about the gamble per se. Like I understand it's like it's sort of like chance in some aspects of Squid Game, but I wouldn't say it is entirely like that. I think Squid Game as a whole really leans into more trying to get ahead in a lot of ways, because there's a goal at the end. And I think that if we were trying to incorporate it into DBD, I think there would have to be some kind of mechanics where it seems like a simple mini game, but then you can also sabotage your teammates for yourself to get a boost in some kinds of ways to kind of lean into what the Squid Game sort of as a core would be about, right? At least in my perspective. Because a gamble, like, I don't know, I wouldn't say it's really Squid Game's really about that. I mean, there wasn't really a lot of gambles. It's literally just like kid games. Like they were playing Squid Game, they were playing, which I know that was like in the first season, or they were playing basically red light, green light, right? Like, you know, with the robot. You know what I mean? Like these are things that are like testing your skills to do certain things and to follow directions and things like that. And if you or like dealing with that cookie thing, you know what I mean? Like that's supposedly like a something that like kids would do or whatever for fun and stuff like that as a challenge. And you know, as some examples that are very iconic that people will understand. I think those things were more so either skill based or trying to do this somewhat impossible task that is a twist for the amusement of the higher ups in that kind of way. And I think the higher ups in this sense, right? The rich people in this sense would actually just be the entity instead. So you would want to have something that would actually lean into that, in my opinion, where the survivors are going to have to do things to try to get ahead in a lot of ways, maybe because like they're like they're trying to either sabotage each other to get ahead in the game, and or you can try to have something that were a bit more to like team up and try to help each other out. I think now something as so much of a broad statement like that, I think would be very hard to incorporate. And like I've said, I mean, given more time, I probably would be able to come up with something else. But at least from what I'm seeing here, what I've read so far, I'm not too sure if this would be great in the game. Now there's like obviously two things to answer here. Like, does Squid Game belong in DVD? I would say maybe not. But if you were to do that, I would say that the power would definitely have to lean more into mini games and trying to get ahead ultimately, because there's always that big looming thing of like the cash prize, people trying to team up, and other people trying to get ahead. You know what I mean? Those are the very key components, and obviously, heavily pushing the mini game aspect. I don't think that Squid Game really involves a lot of gamble, in my opinion.
Personally, I think it's an excellent power that could maybe use some tweaks, but fits amazingly with the themes and violence of the Squid Games. Let me know what you guys would tweak in the comments section. But
so yeah, like that's my thoughts on that. Obviously, now I'll look at the perks as well. So it says it's a scourge hook, and all survivors will scream, and your terror radius is basically given to them. Not terrible at all, I'd say. Definitely not horrible at all. I wouldn't imagine I wouldn't imagine that it would be used much, but in terms of creativity, I would give it like at least a 6 out of 10. The survivors getting your terror radius is kind of interesting, although I'm not entirely sure how that ties into the invitation aspects, but I like the idea. I don't know how that would work, obviously. Now we're gonna check the next one. So it says green light. So after a survivor, this perk after hooking a survivor, this perk activates. The next chase you begin with 12 seconds begins with bloodlust. This perk goes on cooldown for 90 seconds. Once again, I will say very high creativity here. I have to give it like a good rating, man. Like at least 8 out of 10 for creativity. Pretty nice. Because obviously, they're turned around in the icon. Now, the only way I would tweak this, I would say, is that if you're gonna call it green light and reference the red light, green light, I was thinking like, what if there was some aspect where like if you can't see them or something like that, they gain some kind of bonus or something. I don't know, like maybe if you're not looking at them, they gain speed or something. Like, I don't know, like, which probably is a terrible idea, but trying to go with the concept of like you're looking away so you can start running, you know what I mean? But I don't think that would really work, to be honest, like as a killer perk, so probably not. Maybe that would be a survivor perk instead, that where if the killer's looking at you, you don't get the bonus or something, but then if you're it's probably actually a terrible idea, but I don't know. I like the idea though. I like the reference. VIP treatment. Okay, so you become obsessed with one survivor. Whenever a gen is completed, that survivor is afflicted with blindness and exhausted for 10 seconds. Once again, like I like the idea that we're like referencing a lot of these things in the series, but in terms of the perk, it's not bad. If they had a way where it could swap obsessions, I think it'd be a lot more interesting, in my opinion. The fact that it's only when a gen is completed might make it fall a little bit flat in terms of like usability, I would say, but if I were to change something like this, I would probably say, maybe if like you start, maybe if it's like something else, I don't know, like maybe if you start chase with the obsession or something like that, maybe it'll like give blindness and exhausted to the other, you know, survivors instead or something, like, because it is called VIP treatment, right? So like you would, so the people that, you know, wearing the mask usually are at the top above the games, like they're not really dealing with all of that stuff. So I thought, you know, I'm just tossing ideas off the cuff here, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. Like, these ideas are probably, that I've got right now, are probably absolutely terrible. You can let me know in the comments. I'm, you know, it's very hard to to come up with something good for something like this, because I'm not super confident in Squid Game really being in DBD as a whole, I think. So I think that's affecting my ideas here. But either way, I will say, to answer the question, I guess, or I guess my response to this, I would say, like, I don't think it fits unless there were just more aspects within like mini games and sort of getting ahead in a lot of ways to try to, you know, get the prize, I guess, which in this case is actually escaping. I do wonder if maybe you can have like something to do with blood point gain with this killer. I mean, that might be interesting, you know, I don't know. Like, oh, if you escape or something against the killer, you get like an additional blood point bonus or something. I don't know. You know, to try to like lean into that cash prize thing. I don't know. Like, it's very hard to incorporate something like this because, like I've said, it's I don't think it's a very horrific, like a very horror adjacent, sort of concept, in my opinion. Like, I think it's more of like a psychological sort of horror kind of thing. So I would imagine it's kind of difficult to actually make that into a medium like DBD. But I do think that the team and at Behavior and whoever, that if they decide to go in this direction, I think they could make it work in a way that would be way more like interesting that we can possibly think of. Maybe not right now, obviously, because it ain't looking too hot for DBD. But assuming that in the future. As for the power, like I've said, I don't know. I'm not super on board with this. I would say I would think that we need more aspects like of mini games and things of that way. Maybe trying to bring some of those iconic mini games from the series and make that into the power. So I was thinking like the doll, maybe like that would do like red light, green light. When you activate it or something, like maybe it will spawn in or something. I don't know, and you know, causes them to or maybe you could at least hear like the lullaby thing that will say, you know, whatever. I don't know what it says because I had watched it in Korean, but either way, I forget how it sounded, like, but basically like you'll hear it and then, you know, it'll do whatever. And I guess like what could happen is if they start moving during that point, they can, you know, they will get hit or something. Or, okay, I just thought of something while I was yapping. What if you were able to control the doll, and or something like that when you activate the red light, and then you can like deal a health state if they mess up, you know? That could be interesting. Or something like that, I think. But yeah, that is going to be my thoughts on the video so far. If you want to watch the original, it'll be linked in the description. You can watch the rest of the video and support Stalkedd by checking out the channel. Obviously, this was a bit of a yap. Honestly, it's a little bit free flow because I really had no idea what really to expect from this video. Very interesting. Really had me thinking, and I'm still very just like confused. I really don't know how I would change this concept around. Besides maybe, like I've said, like leaning into more of the core of Squid Game as a whole, but. Either way, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Check out the original video. While you're down there, you can see the links to support the channel. Consider following on Twitch and TikTok. And yeah, follow on Twitch as we play Kill Live. I'll see you guys in the next video.